I'm not entirely sure if this story belongs to the realm of the supernatural or if it's just another urban legend. All I know is that for me, it was a truly terrifying experience. This happened a few months ago, so while the dialogue might not be word for word, the memory of what we saw is burned into my mind. Last summer, a group of friends and I were bored and came up with a spontaneous idea. Why don't we just drive somewhere? We didn't have a destination, so we decided to head toward Nagano, strictly avoiding the toll highways. There were four of us, myself and my friends A, B, and S, our usual crew. We spent the day wandering around, ate at a tourist spot, and once it got dark, we started the long drive back. We were taking turns at the wheel. We were somewhere near the border of Nagano and Guma. I remember seeing a sign for Mount Asama, relying entirely on the GPS. A, who was driving at the time, suddenly looked over at me. Hey, something's wrong with the road. Is the GPS still tracking right? I hadn't noticed anything until that moment. But as I looked out the window, a cold feeling settled in my stomach. Just a few minutes ago, we had been on a wide, well-maintained highway. Now, the road had narrowed. The guardrails were choked with rust, and the asphalt was spider-webbed with cracks. Thick weeds pushing through the surface. We were taking a different route back, so I wasn't sure if this was normal, but the GPS was just showing a single, endless straight line. A insisted he hadn't made any turns. He'd stayed on the main road the whole time. We figured, well, it's the mountains, and kept going. But after 30 minutes, the road didn't improve. Worse, we hadn't passed a single oncoming car. We were all starting to get on edge. Suggested, maybe we should pull over and double-check the route? And just then, lights appeared ahead. It looked like a roadside cafe, a drive-in. There were a few cars in the parking lot, and we felt an immediate wave of relief. It seemed like the perfect place to stop. The place looked deserted, no staff in sight, but through the glass, we could see rows of glowing vending machines. A and S headed for the restrooms, while B and I went toward the seating area by the machines. As I reached for the door handle, I saw something strange by the entrance. Resting in the light was a moth. It was massive, larger than the palm of my hand. Finding a moth that size in midsummer is weird enough, but it was the pattern on its wings that stopped my heart. You know how moths often have spots that look like eyes? This pattern formed a perfect, unmistakable human face. And the eyes weren't just circles. They looked like real, wet, living eyes. Ugh, that's disgusting, B muttered. We tried not to look at it and hurried inside. Looking back, I should have known then. The whole place was off. The interior was spacious with plenty of tables, but the lighting was dim and flickering. The floors and walls felt greasy. In the back, there were some arcade cabinets that looked decades old. In one corner, a TV was humming, and a man in his 50s was sitting with his back to us. Looking at him gave me an inexplicable sense of dread. I was about to say something to B, but he whispered excitedly, "Look, girls, 3 of them. Should we go talk to them?" I looked over. Sure enough, 3 girls in their early 20s were sitting at a table, but they looked terrified. They were glancing around constantly, whispering to each other. Suddenly, one of them noticed us and walked over. B was beaming, but I was flooded with anxiety. The girl didn't waste time. "I'm sorry, this might sound strange, but are we on the right road to Kanto? And also," she hesitated, "does this place feel wrong to you?" Since I felt the exact same way, we sat down with them to talk. It turned out their story was identical to ours. The road suddenly decayed, they got scared, and they stopped here to check the map. But once they got inside, they felt even worse. As we talked, one of the girls whispered, "Look at that man in front of the TV." I looked closer and realized what had been bothering me. From a distance you couldn't tell, but his proportions compared to the table and the TV were completely wrong. He was monstrously huge. If he stood up, he would have been 3 or 4 meters tall, around 10 to 13 feet. Even B went quiet. He's too big. What is that thing? The girl continued. And over there, by the Purikura photo booth machine. Peeking out from under the curtain of an old photo booth were a woman's legs in a long skirt. The girl said the woman hadn't moved an inch since they arrived. And one more thing, she whispered. Do you hear that? Like people talking? I listened. At first I thought it was the hum of the air conditioner, but then I heard it. The distinct, muffled drone of a crowd, like dozens of people whispering right next to my ear. You couldn't tell where it was coming from. This place was sheer madness. At that moment, the door opened and A&S walked in. What? You guys making moves on girls already? Joked, but then he saw our faces. Wait, forget that. Come here. Something insane is happening. We all went to the vending machine area, pointed to a coffee machine. It looked normal, an LCD screen showing ads. But then I saw it. On the screen, where the video should be, was a living, breathing human mouth. The mouth was moving, saying,
Welcome. Please make your selection.
See? S whispered. We thought someone was inside. We banged on the machine, but there was no reaction. But look at the skin around the lips. It just merges into the screen. That's not a video. That was the breaking point. This place was outside of reality. We decided to leave. Now, as we turned to the exit, one of the girls screamed and grabbed my shoulder, pointing back at the lounge. From behind the curtain of the photo booth, the woman emerged. Or rather, the creature. She had no upper torso. From the waist up, her body narrowed into something that looked like a rope or a thin pole, stretching high up into the ceiling. The thing walked toward us, swaying rhythmically. We panicked and bolted out the door. Outside, we looked back. The creature didn't even look at us. It just swayed toward the restrooms. Get in the car! Move! Someone yelled. We told the girls to follow our car. But then, from the woods behind the parking lot, shadows began to emerge. 50, maybe 60 figures moving slowly toward us. Suddenly, something launched out of the trees and slammed into a truck parked near our car. In the glow of the streetlights, we saw it. A giant larva, over a meter long. The impact shattered the truck's window. The larva fell to the pavement, writhing and oozing a thick yellow slime. Then 7 or 8 more of them came leaping out, some of them aiming right for us. We screamed at the girls to get in their car, but they started running the wrong way, toward a corner of the lot. Not that way! The car! We yelled, chasing them. Let's hide in the shed! We can wait it out there, they screamed, pointing to an old metal shipping container. I thought they were just hysterical. We literally grabbed them and dragged them back while the shadows closed in and the giant larvae hopped across the asphalt. We shoved them into their car. B&S jumped in with them so they wouldn't be alone, and we tore out of there. In the rearview mirror, I saw the larvae trying to chase us with massive leaps, but they couldn't keep up. We drove for about an hour, though now I realize a mountain descent shouldn't take that long, until the city lights appeared below. Suddenly my phone rang. It was S from the other car. He said the girls really needed to use the restroom. We found a parking lot for a public park. We offered to walk them to the door, but they said they were fine now and hurried off. 10 minutes passed, then 15. We started to worry. We went to the public restroom and called out, silence. We didn't want to walk into the women's room, so we thought maybe we missed them. We went back to the cars. Empty. I stayed to watch the cars while A, B, and South searched the park. While waiting, I noticed the door to the girl's car was slightly ajar. I peeked inside. No one. A woman's purse was sitting on the seat. It started to slide, and when I tried to catch it, it hit the ground, spilling its contents. A lipstick rolled under the car. My friends returned. They had checked everywhere. The girls were gone. We were spooked, so we called the police. I put the purse on the roof of our car for safekeeping. When the patrol car arrived, things got even weirder. "Where is this other car you're talking about?" the officer asked. I turned around. The parking lot was empty. There was no car next to ours. We ran around the lot, unable to believe our eyes, but the car was gone. The police looked at us like we were on drugs. Then I remembered the purse on the roof. I showed it to the officer. They took the bag, took our statements, and let us go home. Of course, they didn't believe a word about monsters or the shifting cafe. Then the real trouble started. Using the ID and phone in the purse, the police identified the owner. It belonged to a college student who had gone missing over 10 years ago. We were brought in for questioning repeatedly as potential suspects in a kidnapping or murder. Fortunately, 10 years ago, we were just children living in Tokyo, so we couldn't have been involved. But they kept asking, "Where did you get that bag?" The police told us that on the road we described there was no cafe. There never had been. We even drove the route with a patrol car, but we couldn't even find the broken, overgrown road. Everything was in perfect condition. However, when they showed me the photo of the missing girl from the case file, it was her. One of the 3 girls we had been with that night. Exactly the same. The police eventually left us alone. But I still think about that night. There were so many things that didn't add up. Even if you ignore the fact that they hadn't aged in a decade. First, they said they were driving the same way we were. But the road was narrow, and we never saw headlights in our mirrors, even on the straightaways. Second, their reaction. Would terrified girls really trust 4 random guys they met in a dark cafe without a second thought? Third, that shed. Why did all 3 of them, without speaking, run toward that metal box instead of their own car? What if it was locked? And finally, why did they need to use the restroom the moment we reached the city, only to vanish? The more I think about it, the more I feel there was a dark intent behind their actions. If we had listened to them and locked ourselves in that metal shed instead of driving away, what would have happened to us? We still don't know why they were really on that road.